Parliament Hill is set to kick off its fall session, and it's expected to be full of fireworks. Justin Trudeau is hanging on by a thread. The NDP broke up its marriage with the Liberals, and the Conservatives are threatening to pull the rug out from under the government to force an election. So we might be in for quite the wild ride. Joining us to talk about that now is the Conservatives' Deputy Leader, Melissa Lantsman. Thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa.
Thanks for having me.
It kind of feels like we're in an election campaign right now, and this sudden change in the NDP's tone towards support of the government. Everyone seems to be out on the road giving speeches every day, and you're talking about moving a non-confidence motion for the government to try to bring them down this fall. When do you anticipate Canadians could see you bringing that motion forward?
Well, we'll bring that motion forward at the earliest opportunity that the Conservatives can in the House. And the truth is we've been going around from from coast to coast in the same way, I think, as some others, although some in hiding. And we've heard from Canadians that that they're angry, that they want an election, that they want to see this coalition break up. And we happen to think that it's just another media stunt from Jagmeet Singh, and we'll see if we'll test that confidence and see if he's willing to put his money where his mouth is and actually vote non-confidence in the government rather than putting himself, his pension, ahead of Canadians.
Well, interestingly, one of the places you might be able to do that, which I think was unexpected for a lot of folks, appears to be the carbon tax. But now you run into the issue that the government is courting the Bloc Québécois to keep them in power. Are you confident that your non-confidence motion would have a chance?
We'll give the exact same message to the Bloc and the Bloc leader that the Canadians are tired of having a coalition raise their taxes, raise the price of housing, raise the price of groceries, having people live in tents right across the country in every major city. And that same challenge we'll put to the Bloc Québécois. Vote non-confidence in this government so that Quebecers can finally elect a common sense Conservative government that is going to put themselves first.
I just want to go back to a comment you made earlier about Canadians being frustrated and wanting an election. Certainly the polls bear out that the Conservatives are a country mile ahead of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, and that Canadians are frustrated and they're angry. But recent polling suggests that doesn't mean they necessarily want an election. Are you concerned that if one triggers, you get blamed, people are frustrated, they don't want to go to the polls again, and that potentially that hurts you?
We're going to continue doing exactly what we've been doing since Pierre Poilievre became leader, and that's opposing this government. That's putting Canadians first. That's making sure that we've got a clear message about axing the tax, building homes, fixing the budget, and stopping the crime, the chaos, the drugs and disorder that has taken over almost every single city in this country from coast to coast.
One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today is immigration, and not immigration writ large, but the security of our immigration system after it's been revealed that 3 men, one of whom was charged with murder and conspiracy to murder in the case of a murder of a sick Canadian, another who has been charged with terrorism offenses, a third who is due to be extradited to the United States, facing charges as a result of a plot that police and the FBI say was to kill Jewish people in New York, a very sophisticated plot. 2 of these individuals came over on student visas. One came over as a refugee. This has raised questions about the integrity of the security checks that are happening in our immigration system. You will inherit the system that currently exists. So my question to you is, how do you change that and fix it so that people who want to come to Canada and contribute and build businesses and build the future come in, but you're able to more effectively sort out people who are coming here for the wrong reasons or with the plot to carry out attacks in Canada or against our ally?
Look, at the very start of this, we need accountability from the government. We need transparency and openness about how these things happen, whether there were early warning signs, why somebody who came as a refugee, who was known a known ISIS terrorist, who was seen in a video by our own officials dismembering another human being, why he was granted Canadian citizenship, why somebody whose terrorist plot was thwarted by our authorities who have done a good job, why the Minister of Public Safety says things like this is how the system should work. That's the answers that we want for Canadians, because at the core of it, I think there is a massive security problem in this country. I don't think the system is working as it should, as the minister said, and we're going to get to the bottom of all of this. We've started that work in committee. We're going to continue to hold this government account at committee and figure out the why, the who, the where, the how these things happen, and how Canadians can have confidence in a system that is going to ensure that they can be kept safe and our national security is safeguarded for them.
One of the things that I hear from sources in the CBSA, in CSIS, the intelligence agency, and in the RCMP, they identify two key areas that are problematic. One, an inability to go overseas and check who people are in the way that some of our allies do. We just don't have that capacity. And the second one has to do with inland enforcement ability in Canada. There's difficulty to even find and identify people who are criminally wanted, much less to check in on folks who maybe were on a student visa and aren't coming to school. So, are you committing to significantly more resources to shore up the immigration side of the system on the security front?
We've got to build the capacity, certainly, in the system, but we have had, a generational consensus on immigration, the most revered system in the world, until it was broken and abused by this government, a government whose immigration minister is now responsible for fixing the housing crisis, who broke this system. And Conservatives are going to get to the bottom of how this happened, what safeguards can be put in place to give Canadians, again, the confidence that they would be assured that their national security, that their own safety in their own communities is going to be protected.
How do you talk about this in a way where you're not concerned that it lends itself to xenophobia or racism or anti-immigrant rhetoric? I mean, we saw former President Donald Trump in the debate alleging that Haitian immigrants were eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio. And then the Republican governor of Ohio came out and said, this is not true. How do you discuss this in a way that is meaningful for policy, but that doesn't veer into a place that could be very concerning for Canadians?
I think Canadians agree that our national security should be at the forefront of a conversation about how ISIS terrorists whose plots were thwarted in some cases days before they were carried out. That's a serious conversation that Canadians need to have. There is a serious conversation about about immigration, about the consensus that we enjoyed in the system, about the Canadian dream that is promised to people when they come here. People like my parents, people like parents across the country, grandparents who came here to build a better life for their families and now are forced using food banks, who don't have the housing, who don't have the health care, can't see a doctor, can't find a spot in school. That is a system that is broken, and it deserves a conversation, and it deserves a government that's going to take it seriously and not break it.
Your leader, Pierre Poilievre, was talking about tying immigration levels to housing availability to ensure that you don't have a situation where the system is overwhelmed. Can you explain to us what that would actually look like in practice?
Look, immigration tied to things like housing starts. We're certainly not building enough houses. That is why the cost after 9 years of this government, the cost of a home has doubled, the cost of a mortgage has doubled, the cost of rent has doubled right across the country. We're also talking about tying it to credentialing, making sure that people who come here to build a life for their families, to build a life as a Canadian, can work to the fullest scope of their practice and their education, and know that before they come in here. That is the expectation of Canadians and those who want to become Canadians. And we have built a country and a strong country on people who have come here. And a system that is broken fails those people, and it fails Canadians who can't get the access to housing and who can't get the access to professionals like doctors and nurses that we have a serious shortage of.
Just before we head out, Melissa, I wanted to ask you what your biggest priority is for this fall as you talk to Canadians, and how you're going to convince them that not only you could make a government, but you actually have an ability to follow through with the policy, because we hear a lot of promises, but we don't hear a lot of details on how things are going to happen.
We want to see this country go right to a carbon tax election and give Canadians the choice about the government that they want to see. We've been very clear about our priorities, about cutting taxes, about building homes, about fixing the budget, and about stopping, again, the crime and the chaos that has infiltrated our streets from coast to coast. Those are the priorities that we're running on. Those are the priorities that Pierre Poilievre will put at the top of the agenda when he becomes Prime Minister. And when Jagmeet Singh acquiesces to what he has promised in ripping up or tearing up this agreement, and actually votes non-confidence in a government that he has supported for years, and a carbon tax that he has supported over the course of 24 votes. We hope that happens. We suspect that it won't, and this is another stunt, and we're going to push hard to make sure that it does.
I suspect we'll see lots of political stunts from all parties this fall. We'll be watching them with interest, and we look forward to having you back. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.